Let us begin with the concept of transmission systems. Transmission systems interconnect communication devices by guiding signal energy in a particular direction or direction through a transmission medium such as copper, air, or glass. A transmission system will have at least one transmitting device, a transmitter medium, and a receiving device. The transmitting communication device is capable of converting an information signal into a form of electrical electromagnetic wave or optical signal that allows the information to be transferred through the transmission medium. The receiving communication device converts the transmitted signal into another form that can be used by the device or other devices that are connected to it. Transmission system can be unidirectional or they can be bidirectional. The basic types of transmission mediums include copper wire, coaxial cable, free air or space, fiber optic cable, and mechanical transmission line. Copper and coaxial wire is primarily used for low to moderate frequency transmission over few miles. Free space or air system can be transmit hundreds of miles but have limited bandwidth. They are susceptible to noise interference. Fiber optic cable is capable of carrying high speed data signal as light pulses over thousands of miles. Mechanical, that is, acoustic wave transmission lines transmit over very short distances, only a few millimeters, and are used for signal filtering component. Different types of transmission lines have varying performance characteristics and may be susceptible to interference during signal transmission. These characteristics include the available frequency bandwidth, how much signal leakage that occurs, and the susceptibility of absorbing other signals. The construction of the transmission line itself may cause distortion in the transmitted signal. This include unterminated line splices, poor line splices, and line resistance. Other characteristics, such as varying delays to different frequency ranges, may cause group dispersion of the desired signal. Some of the more popular carrier systems include plain old telephone services, digital signaling carrier, digital subscriber line, and optical carrier. To coordinate the transmission line, signaling message can be sent between communication devices. Some of these control messages are sent along with the data on the transmission line, and others are sent through another part or network called out of band signaling. In some cases, a transmission path may only be a portion of a path through a transmission line. The length of a transmission may be extended through the use of amplifiers or repeaters. Most telecommunication customers are served by a copper cable, twisted pair or coax, terminated by the local telephone company in a telephone network interface box called a network termination. The NT is normally located on the side of the building. The network termination isolates the network from the wiring inside the building. From the NT, the inside wiring extends the telephone cable to all internal wall and floor jacks. To reduce the number of copper pairs, telephone systems use a hybrid transmission system to allow both transmission and reception on a single pair of copper wires. By combining both transmit and receive audio signals using a special hybrid combiner, only one pair of wire is required to operate a standard home telephone. These two lines are routinely referred to as tip and ring. The single pair of wires also provide dial tone, dialing pulses or tones, ringing, high voltage signal, and a talk path. Most of the information that is transferred in voice conversation occurs at frequency below 3300 cycles per second and above 300 Hz. This allows telephone system to restrict the audio frequency range for voice grade circuits from 300 Hz to 3300 Hz. Using the restricted frequency range reduces the transmission line and system switching performance requirements. The limiting of the audio frequency range is accomplished with the use of device known as band pass filter. Band pass filters strongly attenuate signal frequency above and below specific frequencies. It is possible to send digital information through the hybrid network through the use of modulator or demodulator modem. The modem converts digital signal into analog signal that can be transmitted or standard telephone lines. Now we will learn about technologies involved in transmission system. Telecommunication transmission technology is often divided into two categories: analog transmission or digital transmission. Here, the figure depicts a basic telecommunication transmission system that transfers digital information from one source to an information receiver. The information source is supplied to an end node that converts the information to a form that can be transmitted through the transmission medium, that is, air, copper, or fiber. The receiving end node converts the transmission signal into a form that is compatible for the receiver of the information. Now we will understand what exactly is analog transmission. Analog transmission is a process of transferring signals between end nodes that can have many different signal levels and frequencies. Because analog signal can continuously change to many different levels, voltages, at changing rates, that is frequencies, the transfer of analog signal, such as an audio signal, requires the transmission medium to have similar transfer characteristics to all parts, levels, and frequencies of the transmission signal. Analog transmission systems must be robust to transfer the signal unaltered for specific voltage levels and frequency components, for example, high and low frequency. Here, the figure shows the analog transmission system. This diagram shows that an audio acoustic sound signal is converted by a microphone to an audio electrical signal prior to transmission on a copper line. This audio electrical signal is amplified by an end node to increase the signal level for transmission on a copper wire. This amplification is necessary to overcome the transmission loss of the copper wire. As the signal progresses down the copper wire, some of the signal energy is converted to heat, reducing the signal level. Another amplifier, the receiving end node, is located at the receiving end to increase the signal to a level suitable for the information receiver, that is, audio speaker. This was all about the analog transmission. Now let us understand the concept of digital transmission. Digital transmission is the process of transferring information from node to node in a form that can only have specific level, usually logic 1 or logic 0. Digital signals have a limited number of different levels, that is voltages, that represents digital information. Transferring digital signals, such as computer's data signal, only requires the transmission medium to transfer two levels without precisely transferring levels in between the two levels. Here the figure shows a digital transmission system. This diagram shows a computer that is sending digital data, 1 equal to plus 5 volt and 0 equal to 0 volts, to an end node. The end node is a channel service unit and digital service unit that converts the levels from the computer to level suitable for the copper wire transmission medium. Logic 1 is equal to plus 5 volt and logic 0 is equal to minus 5 volt. As the digital signal transfers down the copper wire, some of the energy is converted to heat and some of the frequency components are attenuated, resulting in a slightly distorted digital pulse arriving at the receiving end node. Because the receiving CSU or DSU only needs to sense two levels, it is able to recreate the original undistorted digital signal, also known as digital signal regeneration. Now we will understand what is repeaters. Repeaters are devices or circuits that are located between transmitting and receiving devices to improve the quality, the signal that is delivered between them. The repeaters obtain some or all the signal from the transmitter, amplifier, and may adjust, change a frequency, or filter the signal and retransmit the signal to the receivers. Repeaters can be analog or digital. Analog repeaters amplify the received signal for retransmission. Analog repeaters amplify both the desired signal and any noise that is added to the communication lines. This limits the maximum number of analog repeaters that can be used, and this limits the maximum distance for analog communication lines. Digital repeaters can receive and recreate digital signals. Digital repeaters are also called regenerative repeaters. Next comes data modems. Data modems are devices that convert signal between analog and digital formats for transfer to other lines. Data modems are used to transfer the data signals over conventional analog telephone lines. The term modem also may refer to a device or circuit that converts analog signal from one frequency band to another. A point to point analog data circuit requires a modem at each end to transfer digital signals. The type of modems used at each end must be compatible due to encoding and decoding processes. Analog communication lines are restricted to audio bandwidth of 300 Hz to 3300 Hz. To communicate digital data and control signals, the modems vary the frequency of carrier in each direction based on an agreed process of encoding data bits. Here the figure shows how a data modem converts digital information into analog signal that can be transmitted on an analog communication network. In this example, the data signal comes from the computer called the data terminal equipment via an RS-232 serial data interface. The RS-232 data interface uses predefined signaling commands and data transmission rates to communicate with the data modem. The modem performs a digital to analog conversion and form the line to the DTE, an analog to digital conversion. Next comes with the concept of copper wire. Twisted pair copper wire is the most utilized telecommunication medium and thus has the largest installed base in the worldwide telecommunication infrastructure by far. It is relatively inexpensive, easy to install, and locally available in quantities. Practically every residential telephone worldwide connects to the local telephone company via a twisted pair jack or block located on an inside wall or baseboard in the residence. Twisted pair copper wire is a logical, cost effective medium for providing many commercial services. Here, the figure illustrates the transmission of electrical energy via copper wire. Note that the electricity is conducted via the outer surface of the wire, not the inner. So, the greater the outer surface, the more electricity that can be conducted. Or, in other words, the larger the wire diameter, the more outer surface there is to conduct electricity. It has been found that the tighter the twist, the less interference, and the higher the speed at given error rate. Twisted pair cables come in a variety of sizes and jackets. Twisted pair cables are jacketed and may contain from 2 pair to several hundred pairs. Twisted pair cables are produced as either shielded twisted pair or unshielded twisted pair. When a twisted pair installation is going to occur in an area that has abnormally high levels of electromagnetic energy, STP is recommended. In office or campus environments, UTP or STP provides the wiring infrastructure for LANs, some host based data applications, video, and voice. Central office lines are normally delivered as twisted pairs to the client telephone or computer systems. Such lines range from single station along lines up to and including T1 and E1. Of course, this includes the intermediate digital service known as digital subscriber line. Here is a table that shows the types of twisted pair cables and their rated capacities and maximum links. Copper wire cable is category rated. This table shows that the category varies based on the design of the cable, shielded or unshielded, size of the wire, and the types of insulation material used. Next, we will learn about coaxial cable. Coaxial cable is a transmission line that is constructed from a center conductor that is completely surrounded by shield conductor. The center conductor and the shield conductor are separated by an insulation material. The shield can be interwoven strands of wire or metal foil. Because the center conductor is completely surrounded by the shield, in an ideal coaxial cable, all the transmitted energy is contained within the cable. We all have seen the coaxial cable in our houses, isn't it? Where our dish antenna is connected to set-top box through a coaxial cable. Here the figure shows the cross-sectional view of coaxial cable. This diagram shows a center conductor that is surrounded by an insulator. Dielectric, the insulator is surrounded by the shield. This diagram shows that during transmission, electric fields extend perpendicular from the center conductor and magnetic fields form a circular pattern around the center conductor. As we mentioned, coaxial cable is best known for the medium of cable television. It was primarily chosen because of its durability, wide frequency bandwidth capacity, often up to 1 GHz bandwidth, and less rigid length restriction. Next comes the concept of power line carrier. Power line carrier is a transmission carrier wave signal that is simultaneously transmitted on electrical power lines. A power line carrier signal is above the standard 50 or 60 Hz power line carrier frequency. Here the figure shows three types of communication system that use an electrical power distribution system to simultaneously carry information signal along with electrical power signals. In this example, the high voltage portion of the transmission system is modified to include communication transceivers that can withstand the high voltage while coupling or transferring their information to other receivers that are connected to the high voltage lines. This type of communication could be used to monitor and control power distribution equipments such as relays and transformers. This example also shows a power line distribution system that locates a communication node near a transformer and provides a data signal to home connected to a transformer. The system could allow customers to obtain internet access or digital telephone service by plugging the computer or special telephone into a standard power socket. The diagram also shows how a consumer may use the electrical wiring in their homes as a distribution system for data. Our next topic is free space or air. Transmission in free space and air can be accomplished by radio or light signals. Free space or air transmission is a transfer of signal energy through an unobstructed medium. Free space transmission occurs in an ideal medium that is free of objects or particles that may disrupt the transmission of signal energy. Transmission of signal in air has similar characteristics as free space transmission. However, particles in the air result in signal scattering and absorbing during transmission. Free space transmission systems require a transducer to convert signal energy of one form into electromagnetic or optical energy of transmission. The transducer must also focus the energy so it may launch the energy in the desired direction. When air is the medium, particles in the air may absorb or redirect the transmitted signal. Here the figure shows two types of free space transmission, radio and optical. The microwave transmission system shows that some of the electromagnetic energy is absorbed by the water particles in the air. The optical transmission system uses a laser and photodetector. The optical transmission system shows that some of the optical energy is scattered in other direction as it passes through smog and water particles. In addition, microwave radio free space technology is the basis for satellite communication. In the commercial broadcast industry, satellites are fed from terrestrial sites called mother stations. The mother stations transmits up to the satellite on multiple frequencies called uplinks. The transceivers on the satellite, referred to as transponders, retransmits the signals back down to Earth. These signals are known as downlinks. On the ground, satellite dishes receive the downlink signals and a radio receiver converts the signal back into television images and sound. Home box office and Showtime are examples of commercial broadcast companies that use satellites almost exclusively for distribution. Microwave transmission system transfers signal energy through an unobstructed medium between two or more points. Microwave systems require a transducer to convert signal energy of one form into electromagnetic energy for transmission. The transducer must also focus the energy so it may launch the energy in the desired direction. Some of the electromagnetic energy that is transmitted by microwave systems is absorbed by the water particles in the air. Although the extensive deployment of fiber optic cable has removed some of the need for microwave radio systems, Microwave radio is still used in places that are hard to reach or not cost effectively served by fiber cables, such as in developing countries. Our next topic is fiber optic cable. Fiber optic cable is a strand of glass or plastic that is used to transfer optical energy between points. The size of most fibers is from 10 to 200 microns. Optical fibers are typically used in a unidirectional mode. Example, data moves only in one direction. Because of this, every transmission system requires at least two fibers, one for transmission and one for reception. For most fiber systems, the transmitting end node user light amplification through stimulated emission of radiation twice to convert digital information into pulsed light signals. The light signals travel down the fiber strand by bouncing off the sides of the fiber, called the cladding, until they reach the end of the fiber. The end of the fiber is connected to a photodetector that converts these light pulses back into their electrical form. Optical fiber are often characterized by either single mode or multi-mode transmission. Single mode of fiber transmission only allows a specific narrow wavelength of light to pass through the fiber. Multimode fiber transmission allows much wider wavelength of light to pass through the fiber by gradually bending different wavelengths back towards the center of the fiber. Single mode fiber strands are very narrow with a fiber diameter of 9 to 10 microns. Multimode fibers are much wider as they can have a fiber diameter of 50 to 125 microns. Here the figure shows single mode and multimode fiber lines. This diagram shows that multimode fibers have a relatively wide transmission channel that allows signals with different wavelengths to bend back into the center of the fiber strand as they propagate down the fiber. The diagram also shows that single mode fiber has a much smaller transmission channel that only allows a specific wavelength to transfer down the fiber strand. Because of the relatively wide frequency bandwidth and high data transmission rate, multimode fibers are predominantly used for high speed short runs, such as those occurring within a building or around a campus. Typical multimode fiber runs are less than a mile but can be served miles 2 to 5. Because of this, it is often referred to a short haul fiber solution. Single mode is a long haul fiber solution that is 50 to 75 mile runs. Single mode fiber has been used by telephone companies and long distance carriers for several years to offload expanding requirements from traditional terrestrial microwave. Single mode fiber can transmit much further than multi-mode fibers. Single mode applications use a diode laser as a light source, while multi-mode uses a light emitting diode. Use of a laser ensures high energy at a very narrow optical bandwidth as compared to the LED that has optical energy distributed over a wide optical bandwidth. The narrow channel of the single mode fiber minimizes the bending of the wave, and this results in less dispersion over distances. Here the figure shows a fiber optic communication system that is composed of two end nodes and a fiber optic cable transmission medium. This diagram shows two optical network units that connects data networks together using fiber cable. This diagram shows that two fiber strands are needed, one for transmitting and one for receiving. To increase the capacity of fiber systems, multiple optical signals of different wavelengths are combined on a single strand of fiber. This is called wave division multiplexing. For better understanding, let us understand the limitation of transmission medium. Some of the limitation of transmission lines that reduce their ability to transfer analog and digital information include limited frequency response of the transmission lines, crosstalk noise from external sources that cause distortion, non-terminated tap lines, and signal attenuation that results from line splices and line resistance. Our next topic is integrated services digital network. Integrated services digital network is a structured all digital telephone network system that was designed to replace existing analog telephone networks. The ISDN network supports advanced telecommunication service and defined universal standard interface that are used in wireless and wired telecommunication systems. There are two key user interface defined for ISDN networks: basic rate interference and primary rate interference. The basic rate interference is the smallest transmission system available through ISDN. BRI provides for two 64 kbps bearer channels, also called B channels, and a 16 kbps signaling data channel, that is D channel. This configuration is also known as 2B plus D. The primary rate interference is a standard high speed data communication interface that is used in the ISDN system. This interface provides for T1 1.544 Mbps and E1 2.048 Mbps. The interface can be divided into combinations of 384 kbps channels, 64 kbps channels, and include at least 164 kbps control channel. Now let us start with the digital subscriber line. Digital subscriber line is a transmission of digital information, usually on a copper wire pair. Although the transmitted information is in digital form, the transmission medium is usually an analog carrier signal or the combination of many analog carrier signals. DSL transmission allows high speed data transmission over existing twisted pair telephone wires. This has the potential providing high speed data services without the burden of installing new transmission lines. Example for internet access. The data transmission capability of a DSL system varies based on the distance of the cable, types of the cable used, and modulation technology. There are several different DSL technologies. Each of the DSL technologies mixes different types of transmission technologies to satisfy specific business needs. Some DSL systems allow simultaneous digital and analog transmission and are compatible with analog POTS system. Here the figure shows a basic DSL system. This diagram shows that the key to DSL technologies is a more efficient use of the 1 MHz of bandwidth available on a single pair of copper telephone lines. This was all about DSL. Our next topic is Common Channel Signaling System 7, SS7. So let's begin. Common Channel Signaling System 7 is the primary system used for the control of telephone system. SS7 sends packets of control information between switching systems. Worldwide telephone networks are undergoing significant changes as methods of call processing and network management are altered to provide new services and to streamline operations. These changes are driven by use demands of enhanced services and the corresponding efforts of telephone operating companies to satisfy current and future needs. Enhanced services require bidirectional signaling capabilities, flexibility of call setup, and remote database access. Common channel signaling is a separate signaling system that separates content of telephone calls from the information used to set up the call. When call processing information is separated from the communication channel, it is called out of band signaling. The signaling method uses one of the channel on a multi-channel network of the control, accounting, and management of traffic on all the channels of the network. Because the public telephone network uses common channel signaling, intelligence in the network can be distributed to database and information processing points throughout the network. A set of service development tools has been developed to allow companies to offer advanced intelligent network services. An SS7 network is composed of service switching points, signaling transfer points, and service control points. The SSP gathers the analog signaling information from the local lines in the network endpoint and converts the information into an SS7 message. These messages are transferred into the SS7 network to the STPs that transfers the packet closer to its destination. When special processing of the message is required, such as routing a call to a call forwarding number, the STP routes the message to an SCP. The SCP is a database that can be used in incoming message to determine other numbers and features that are associated with this particular call. In the SS7 protocol, an address such as customer dial digits does not contain explicit information to enable routing in a signaling network. It then will require the signaling connection control part translation function. This is a process in the SS7 system that uses routing table to convert an address, usually a telephone number, into the actual destination address, forwarding telephone number, or into the address of a service control point, that is database, that contains the customer data needed to process a call. Signaling links are logically organized by link type A through F according to their use in the SS7 signaling network. Here, the figure shows the relationship between the link names and the link of location. Our next topic is protocol. Protocol are the precise set of rules and a syntax that govern the accurate transfer of information within a communication network. Protocols are used within a communication system to establish, carry out, and terminate communication circuits. Protocols are also used to coordinate billing and customer care systems, manage network devices, and any other processes that require coordination, communication, and control. Protocol conversion involves the translation of the protocols of one system to those of another to enable different types of equipment, such as data terminals and computers, to communicate. This is done by an interworking function. An IWF system, such as a data bridge, adapts the communication between two different types of networks. Protocol conversion may be used to interconnect circuit switched or packet switched networks. Access protocols are the set of rules that workstation use to avoid collision when sending information over shared network media. Access protocols are also known as media access control protocols. Handshaking protocols involve the sequence of events that occur between communication devices that negotiate the data transmission rules and ensure reliable data transmission. When data devices begin to communicate, they discover the capabilities and agree on a common set of protocols to use during data communication session. Line discipline is the sequence of events that must occur to control the reception of data, perform error detection and correction, and multiplexing of control information if necessary. Session protocols control the end to end connectivity of a data communication session. Session protocols ensure all the data that is received and in the correct order. Different protocols may be used in systems that provide similar functions. An example of this is token ring and Ethernet. Although these networks may actually use the same signaling system, they use incompatible protocols. To allow data to transfer between these networks, protocol converters are used. Protocol converters receive data and control messages, reformat data and convert control messages, and retransmit the data using the new protocol rules. Our next topic is protocol stack. A protocol stack is a hierarchical structure of information processing functions that are logically separated into layers that theoretically only interact with the higher and lower functional layers. The use of protocol stack allows software programs and devices to be independently created that only provides parts of the overall operation. Protocol stack can be proprietary, that is, owned exclusively by a company or group of companies. Or protocol stack can be created as an industry standard. This was all about protocol stack. Now let us discuss about open system interconnection, that is OSI. A generic form of communication protocol layer is open system interconnection. OSI layer were developed by the International Standard Organization and the CCHT to facilitate the open interconnection of computers and data terminals to their applications, regardless of their type of manufacturer. The protocol specifies seven layers: physical, data link, network, transport, session, presentation, and application. Each layer performs specific function for data exchange and is independent of the other layers. Here the figure shows the seven layers of open system interconnection model and how they interact with each other. This example shows how an email application can use the OSI model to allow communication between an email client to an email server independent of who controls each layer, provided the interfaces between each layer are specifically defined. This diagram shows that the application layer is the interface to the user that permits the user to request delivery of their email. The application layer presents this request to the transport layer as the data file. The data file is divided up into smaller blocks of data and presented to the session layer. The session layer determines a new session is required between the client and the server, and this session information is passed on to the transport layer that will oversee the transfer of data during the session. The transport layer sends the destination address of the email server to the network layer. The network layer sends this information to the data link layer that establishes and maintains a data link connection to the network. The data link layer sends information to the physical layer that converts to data signal to either radio, electrical, or optical format suitable for transmission. Now, here comes the topic protocol suites. Let's begin with protocol suites. Protocol suite is a combination of network protocols that have designed to interoperate with each other to provide a common data communication language that is used on a network or communication system. One of the more common protocol suites is Internet Protocol. The Internet Protocol suite is a combination of network protocols that have designed to interoperate with each other to provide a common data communication language that is used on the Internet. The layer of protocol suite include physical layer, network or routing layer, transport or session layer, and application layer. The Internet Protocol suite is overseen by the Internet Engineering Task Force. Key protocol in the Internet Protocol suite include Internet Protocol, Transaction Capabilities Protocol, and User Datagram Protocol. There are many other protocols that are part of the Internet Protocol suite. X25 packet. X25 packet is an international standard for reliable data communication through the use of a packet data switching network. The X25 standard specifies the protocol between the data device and the network, such as the public packet data network. The X25 system is a connection based packet switching system. X25 packet data switches are initially programmed to create a logical path from the entry point to the exit point before data transmission begins. X25 systems are used to ensure reliable data transmission as it uses advanced error protection and retransmission processes. To provide this reliable transmission of packets of data, each link in the packet data network receives, checks, requests retransmission if necessary, and forward the data onto the next link. This was all about X25 packet. So the next topic is public switch telephone networks, PSTNs. Local exchange carrier or post or telegraph and telecommunications companies provide telephone services directly to residential and business customers located within a localized geographic area. Typically, these telephone companies provide service via copper lines that extend a local carrier switching facility to the end customer's premises equipment. This is referred as local loop. The local loop is a connection between customer's telephone or data equipment and an LEC or other telephone service provider. Traditionally, the local loop, also called outside plant, has been composed of copper wires to extend from the EO switch. The EO is the last switching office in the telephone network that connects customer to the telephone network. The EO switch cables meet the copper lines at the main distribution frame. The MDF is a wiring track that allows technicians to splice the local loop lines within the lines from the switching system. Local loop lines leave the MDF in bundles, possibly thousands of wire in each bundle, and arrive in other junction points such as local loop distribution frame. The local loop distribution frame allows the connection of the final connection to the business or residence. Here the figure depicts a traditional local loop distribution system. This diagram shows a central office building that contains an EO switch. The EO switch is connected to the MDF splice box. The MDF connects the switch to bundles of cables in the outside plant distribution network. These bundles of cables periodically are connected to local distribution frames. The LDFs allows connection of the final cable that connects to the house or building. An NT block isolates the inside wiring from the telephone system. Twisted pair wiring is usually looped through the home or building to provide several telephone connection points or jackets so telephones can connect to the telephone system. Our next figure shows a basic overview of public switch telephone network as deployed in a typical metropolitan area. PSTN customers connect to the end office for communication services. The EO process the customer service request locally or passes it off to the appropriate end or tandem office. As different levels of switches interconnect the parts of the PSTN system, lower level switches are used to connect end users directly to other end users in a specific geographic area. Higher level switches are used to interconnect lower level switches. Here I conclude this chapter. Hope you understand all the concepts clearly. Meet you in the next chapter.
So, what are you waiting for? Join us for the course and do subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon. Also, if you like our videos, don't forget to hit the like button and share our videos.